The sun was beginning its slow descent, behind the rolling hills of Montana, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Emily wiped her hands on her apron, finishing up the evening chores. The chickens were settled in their coop, and the smell of hay lingered in the air. It had been a quiet day, almost too quiet, which suited Emily just fine. She liked the solitude of her small ranch. Life had taught her that peace was rare, and Montana offered plenty of it. She was just about to light the old stove when a sudden, sharp knock echoed through the wooden walls of her modest house. Startled, she paused, listening. Another knock followed, more urgent this time. Emily frowned. It was late, and strangers didn't usually wander out here. Not unless they were lost or trouble. She hesitated, but eventually stepped toward the door, her boots scuffing the wooden floorboards. Opening the door, she found a tall man leaning heavily on his hat. Dust clung to his boots and the folds of his worn jeans. His face was shadowed, but she could make out eyes that were tired, yet somehow pleading. "Please, I need help," he said, his voice hoarse. Emily's heart skipped a beat. He looked exhausted, beaten down by more than just travel. "Come in," she said, stepping aside, though caution still pricked her nerves. The stranger entered slowly, his posture tense but polite. As he removed his hat, a few strands of dark hair fell. Across his forehead, Emily noticed the quality of his shirt. Beneath the dust, it wasn't typical ranch wear. There was something unusual about him, something refined hidden under the rugged exterior. She offered him a glass of water and a seat by the stove. He drank it gratefully, letting out a deep sigh. That seemed to release some of the weight he carried. Emily couldn't help but glance at his hands. Calloused but well-kept, a strange combination. She had helped many travelers in her years, but there was something different about him, something she couldn't put her finger on. "Where are you coming from?" she asked gently, trying to make conversation without sounding intrusive. The man shook his head, keeping his eyes on the fire. "Far from here, farther than you'd imagine," he murmured. There was a guarded edge in his tone, as if the world had taught him not to trust easily. Emily nodded, respecting the silence. The evening wore on the warm glow of the stove, lighting the room and casting soft shadows across the walls. Emily found herself watching him from time to time, curiosity bubbling inside her. Who was he and why? In this remote corner of Montana, had he knocked at her door seeking help? Little did she know this dusty, weary cowboy wasn't just another lost traveler. Behind his eyes and under the grime, he carried a secret life, one that could change both of their worlds forever. As the first stars began to twinkle outside the window, Emily realized she might have just opened her door to more than a stranger. She had opened it to destiny. Morning light crept through the curtains, spilling across the wooden floor, and lighting up the small ranch kitchen. The smell of coffee and freshly baked bread filled the air. Emily moved quietly, not wanting to disturb the stranger, who had spent the night in her spare room. She could hear him shifting, the creak of the bed, and the low murmur of someone lost in thought. When she peeked into the room, he was sitting by the window, staring at the distant hills. Dust still clung to his worn jeans, and his boots were scuffed from the long journey. "Morning," she said softly. He turned, giving her a tired but genuine smile. It was the first time she had seen warmth on his face, and it made her heart beat faster. "I hope I didn't trouble you," he said, his voice low and careful. "You've been generous enough already." Emily shrugged, trying to hide her curiosity. "It's what I do. Everyone needs help sometimes. Sit down, breakfast is ready." As they ate, she watched him carefully. His hands, strong yet delicate, handled the fork with a careful precision. Something about him didn't fit the image of a wandering cowboy. There was a refinement in the way he carried himself, a quiet confidence that hinted at a life far removed from these dusty hills. "So you've been traveling a long time?" she asked, trying to draw him out without prying too much. He nodded, taking a slow sip of coffee. "Yes, longer than I care to remember." His eyes flickered toward the window, as if seeing ghosts on the horizon. "I've been running from things I can't explain, things I wish I could leave behind." Emily felt a chill despite the warm morning sun. There was sadness in his voice, a weight she recognized, one she had seen in people who carried more than the world should ask of them. She wanted to ask more, to pry, but some instincts told her to let him reveal his story on his own. The morning passed in silence, punctuated only by the occasional sound of a bird outside, or the soft clatter of dishes. Emily found herself drawn to the quiet moments, the way he watched the world, with eyes that seemed to see far more than the hills around them. "Why Montana?" she asked, eventually unable to contain her curiosity. He shook his head, a faint shadow crossing his face. "I needed a place no one would think to find me. Somewhere quiet and far from everything I used to know." Emily nodded slowly, understanding that some stories were dangerous to tell too soon. She respected the walls he had built, sensing that trust would come only when he was ready, yet she couldn't ignore the feeling that fate had placed him on her doorstep, and that the ordinary quiet of her life was about to change forever. Outside, the wind rustled through the fields, carrying a faint scent of wildflowers and earth. Emily poured another cup of coffee. Watching him, he was more than just a stranger, more than a lost traveler. Deep down, she knew he was hiding something significant, something that, when revealed, could upend both their lives. And somehow, amidst the uncertainty and shadows of secrets, she felt a spark of connection, fragile yet undeniable, beginning to grow. The morning sun barely warmed the gravel driveway, when the sharp sound of tires crunching against the stones shattered the calm. Emily's heart leapt into her throat. She hadn't expected visitors, especially not ones in sleek black cars. Through the kitchen window, she saw two men in tailored suits step out, their eyes scanning the property with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Something about them screamed authority, danger and urgency all at once. "Emily," the stranger whispered from behind her. His voice was low, almost trembling. "They found me." Her mind raced. "Found you? Who are they?" He hesitated, running a hand through his dark hair, dusting it off without success. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world, he spoke. "I didn't want anyone to know." "Not yet, but I have no choice. My name is Luke Harrington. I'm an heir to a fortune in New York. The Harringtons, one of the wealthiest families in the country, and they've been after me for months. Ruthless rivals, people who want what belongs to my family." Emily's jaw dropped. The rugged cowboy who had seemed ordinary, even weary from travel, was a millionaire hiding from danger. Her mind struggled to process the contrast. The man who had quietly helped with the firewood, who sipped coffee with quiet manners, was someone who could own skyscrapers, yachts, and entire city blocks. Yet here he was, vulnerable and human in her modest kitchen. Before she could respond, the men in suits approached the house. Luke motioned toward the back door. "We need to move now," he said urgently. "I can't let them know you're involved. They'll come for you too." Emily's pulse raced, but she trusted him. "Okay," she said firmly, trying to hide the fear shaking her hands. They slipped out the back, moving through the fields, toward a small shed she used for storing equipment. Luke opened it, revealing a dirt bike she had used for quick trips into town. "This will get us a few miles fast," he explained as they sped across the rolling hills. Emily struggled to reconcile the image of the rugged, dusty cowboy with the name Luke Harrington, the heir to millions. She glanced at him, noting the tension in his jaw, the eyes that constantly scanned their surroundings. Danger had followed him all the way to her quiet Montana ranch, and suddenly her simple life felt perilously intertwined with his. You've been hiding?" she asked after a moment, trying to make sense of it all. Luke nodded, eyes fixed ahead. "For months I left everything behind, my family, my life, my fortune. To escape them, I wanted peace. I never expected to find it here or to meet someone like you." Emily's chest tightened. This man, so complex and layered, was placing his trust in her. And in that moment, she realized that whatever happened next, her life and her heart were no longer entirely her own. As they disappeared over the hill, the black car following at a distance, Emily's mind was a whirlwind of fear, awe and fascination. The cowboy millionaire, lost and vulnerable, had walked into her life, and nothing would ever be the same. The following weeks were a strange blend of tension, quiet moments, and unexpected closeness. Luke stayed hidden in a small cabin Emily rarely used, the one she kept for storing extra feed and equipment. The world outside still hunted him, but within the worn wooden walls, He began to relax, revealing the man beneath the millionaire facade. Emily and Luke fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for chores, feeding the animals, mending fences, collecting eggs. Luke moved with a surprising ease, learning quickly under Emily's patient guidance. She taught him how to saddle horses, the correct way to check a horse's hooves, and even how to handle stubborn cattle. At first he fumbled awkwardly, but soon his natural athleticism and quiet determination became evident. Emily found herself laughing at his mistakes, teasing him gently when he tried too hard to master simple ranch work. Evenings were different. They cooked together over the stove, sharing small pieces of their pasts, safe memories that wouldn't put him in danger. Luke spoke of city life in boardrooms, of pressures and expectations she could barely imagine. Emily spoke of the land of quiet nights under endless stars, and the simple satisfaction of working with one's hands. Despite their vastly different worlds, a bridge was forming between them, one built on trust, respect, and slowly attraction. One night, as they sat on the porch watching the moon rise over the hills, Luke reached for her hand. It was tentative at first, a question rather than a statement. Emily didn't pull away the warmth of his hand. The sincerity in his eyes spoke more than words ever could. For the first time in months or maybe years, Luke allowed himself to feel safe, to feel human again. "Why did you really come here?" Emily asked softly, her head resting against his shoulder. Luke took a deep breath, eyes scanning the horizon. "I didn't just come here to hide. I came here because I wanted to find someone who sees me. Not the money, not the name. Someone who cares about the person beneath it all." He turned to look at her, and Emily felt her heart skip. "I think I found that in you." Her cheeks flushed. She never imagined a life so entwined with danger, wealth, and heart-stopping honesty. Yet sitting there on the porch, with the wind rustling the grass and Luke beside her, it felt right, natural, safe, and thrilling all at once. Weeks turned into months. The danger outside slowly receded. Thanks to careful planning and the natural isolation of the Montana landscape, Emily and Luke built a life in the quiet moments, balancing vigilance with laughter, fear with joy. He could return to the city, reclaim his fortune, and live the life expected of him. But his heart now belonged to this land, to her, to a life far simpler and far richer in ways money could never buy. By the first snowfall, Luke had fully embraced life on the ranch. He still dressed like a cowboy, not for disguise, but because he had grown to love the work. The rhythm, the honesty of it. Emily smiled at him, brushing snow from his shoulders. "You're a far better cowboy than I imagined," she teased, "and you," he replied with a grin, "have changed a millionaire into someone who finally knows what matters." Under the snow-dusted hills of Montana, amidst trust, danger, and new beginnings, two worlds collided, and something far greater than wealth, fame, or fear emerged: love.